The wheels retract, the train lifts, and suddenly it is not touching the track anymore. This is the fastest train ever built for land. It reached 603 kilometers per hour. But speed is not the real story. The real story is that Japan spent decades trying to build a machine that could glide through mountains, survive earthquakes, and connect two of its biggest cities in just 40 minutes. And for years, it looked like the project might never happen. In 1964, the world watched as Japan's first bullet train raced between Tokyo and Osaka. It wasn't just a leap in speed. 210 kilometers per hour on opening day, it was a declaration of intent. The Tokaido Shinkansen became a symbol of national recovery and technological pride, moving millions of people with clockwork reliability. But progress has a habit of creating its own limits. By the late 1960s, the same corridor that once stunned the world was choking on its own success. Passenger numbers soared, trains packed tighter. Peak hour schedules left no room for error, no margin for growth. The steel rails that carried Japan forward were now a bottleneck. Planners and policymakers faced a dilemma. The Tokaido line could not be expanded without massive disruption, and conventional upgrades had already squeezed out every possible gain. Internal railway archives from the period show ridership projections that outpaced infrastructure, with warnings that existing capacity would soon be overwhelmed. The Ministry of Transport and Japanese National Railways began searching for a new solution, one that could double capacity, halve travel times, and bypass the crowded coastal plain entirely. So, in the mid-1960s, Japan made a radical choice. It funded research not into faster wheels, but into a train that would float above the track, untouched by friction. This was not a simple upgrade. It was a gamble on physics, on superconducting magnets, and on a vision that would demand decades of persistence. The question was no longer how fast a train could go, but how a nation could build a railway that defied the very ground it crossed. Levitation doesn't begin with magic. It starts with a challenge. How do you lift a 30-ton train off the ground, keep it hovering, and drive it forward, all without touching a single rail? Japan's answer is electrodynamic suspension, known as EDS. Here, superconducting magnets on the train face off against coils embedded in the track. As the train accelerates, its magnets induce currents in those coils. The result is a force that pushes the train upward, holding it steady in an 8mm air gap. Above 150 kilometers per hour, the wheels retract. The train floats. The track becomes the engine. Every meter of concrete and copper is alive with electromagnetic energy, guiding, lifting, and propelling the vehicle at once. This wasn't theory. It was proven in the mountains of Miyazaki on a test track where Japan's engineers spent years chasing stability, control, and speed. Early prototypes in the 1970s barely cracked 30 kilometers per hour. By the 1990s, the system had matured enough to attempt something no one else had managed: sustained, controlled levitation at high speed. The real breakthrough came on April 21st, 2015. On the Yamanashi test line, the L0 series maglev reached 603 kilometers per hour, faster than any train in history. Telemetry confirmed the gap held steady, the magnets stayed cold, and the guideway delivered perfect thrust alignment. As one test engineer put it, at that speed, the track is the machine. Every system has to work in harmony, or nothing moves. The headline speed is real. The physics is proven. Now, the question is whether this machine can survive outside the laboratory, through tunnels, mountains, and the politics of real terrain. The Southern Alps do not yield easily. This is where the dream of a floating train collides with the brute reality of geology. The route from Tokyo to Nagoya cuts straight through a mountain belt riddled with fault lines, some among the most active in Japan. Beneath the surface, layers of fractured schist, granite, and quartzite shift and grind against each other, their history written in seismic scars. Every meter threatens surprise, a hidden fault, a pocket of high-pressure water, a seam of rock ready to collapse. Groundwater pulses through ancient aquifers, held under pressure by the weight of the mountains above. A single miscalculation could flood a tunnel or shift the ground just enough to throw the maglev's precision alignment off by millimeters, enough to halt a train built to float in a gap the width of a pencil. Engineers pore over fault maps and hydrology charts, searching for patterns in chaos. The stakes are absolute. If the tunnel warps, if water seeps in, if the ground moves, the maglev stops. This is not just a battle against rock and water, but against the limits of what infrastructure can promise in the world's most restless terrain. Tunnel construction on the Chuo Shinkansen demanded more than brute force. In the granite heart of the Southern Alps, engineers brought in earth pressure balance tunnel boring machines, giants with 9-meter cutter heads, their teeth arranged to chew through kilometers of solid rock while holding the mountain's weight at bay. Each advance was measured in millimeters. Where the granite fractured and the rock mass rating dropped, the machines gave way to drill and blast crews. Here, teams mapped every fault, loading charges in a staggered sequence, timed to avoid shock waves that could ripple through the tunnel or shatter the fragile aquifers above. In the most unpredictable ground, the new Austrian tunneling method took over. Sensors tracked convergence, shotcrete sprayed the walls, and steel ribs snapped into place when the mountain flexed. Surveyors checked alignment with lasers, recalibrating every 50 meters. The target was a guideway that never drifts more than a pencil's width from true over hundreds of kilometers. Every deviation, every unexpected collapse meant new costs, new delays. Precision was the only defense against a landscape that never stopped shifting. Money was supposed to be the easy part. JR Central set the original budget for the Tokyo to Nagoya maglev line at 5.5 trillion yen. By 2024, that number had ballooned to 9.1 trillion yen, nearly double. The spike did not come from gold plating or extravagance. It came from rock that would not yield, machines that wore out faster than predicted, and groundwater that refused to stay put. Every kilometer bored through the Southern Alps demanded more steel, more concrete, more waterproofing. Extra tunnel boring machines were ordered when the first set ground to a halt in fractured schist. Each redesign meant months lost and millions more spent. But the biggest blow did not come from geology. It came from Shizuoka. In July 2021, Governor Yoshitaka Hara filed an injunction to halt all tunneling under his prefecture. The claim was that the maglev tunnel threatened to drain the aquifers feeding the Shizuoka River basin and would endanger farms and water for 500,000 people. The court sided with the governor, freezing work until JR Central could prove the groundwater would remain safe. Engineers scrambled to install piezometers, run three-dimensional hydrogeological models, and design a forced flow drainage system capable of handling 150 liters per second. Negotiations dragged on for nearly 2 years. Only after JR Central agreed to real-time monitoring, a strict drawdown cap, and a 220 million yen environmental safeguard budget did the blockade begin to lift. Even then, the legal standoff had already added billions in cost and pushed the opening date back by years. The world's fastest train stalled not by physics, but by politics and the price of water. Inside the maglev, the real story is hidden from view, buried in the systems that keep a 30-ton train floating, safe, and precisely on time. Each car carries a cryogenic plant, chilling superconducting coils to 4.2 Kelvin. That is colder than deep space. At this temperature, the magnets never lose their strength. If one cooling unit fails, a second takes over. The system does not wait for trouble, it predicts it. Sensors track every parameter, the gap between train and guideway, the temperature of each coil, the thrust from every inverter. Data flows at 1,000 points per second, cross-checked by dual redundant controllers. If a reading slips out of range, the backup system takes control instantly. No single failure can bring the train down. The guideway itself is alive with current. Linear synchronous motors embedded in the track create a moving magnetic wave, timed to the millisecond. Propulsion inverters, one for every car, adjust phase and power in real time, matching the train's speed to the guideway's pulse. This orchestration is what makes the train float, accelerate, and brake, all without friction, all at speeds once thought impossible for land travel. But the payoff is not just technical. When the Chuo Shinkansen opens, Tokyo and Nagoya will be 40 minutes apart, a city-to-city leap that redraws the map. Models predict a shift of millions of travelers from air to rail, cutting carbon and freeing up the old Tokaido corridor for new growth. The maglev is more than a record breaker. It is a new backbone for a crowded nation, built on engineering that works in silence, beneath the surface, every second of every journey. Steel rails weren't enough. Japan fought mountains, physics, and doubt to make the impossible glide. Today, superconducting magnets hold 300 tons above concrete. No wheels, no limits. As cities choke on gridlock, the real question is, how far are we willing to push when speed isn't the only race? Share your thoughts below.